You're listening to Chicago Stories, a podcast from City Hall featuring the stories of everyday Chicagoans and special guests, as told to Mayor Emanuel.
This is Mayor Emanuel, Chicago Stories. We're with world-famous artist Nick Cave, who just did a beautiful station, Garfield Station in Chicago on the south side. What was the inspiration for that station?
I think the inspiration sort of came from a number of things. It was, it's not just putting a work of art in the station, but it's, the ideas are sort of incorporated within the architecture. Mm-hmm. That was a real sort of interesting way of working. But then it was really Olmsted's perspective of that part of the South Side and looking at the parks and the landscape.
Is that the first project you ever done with the city on a public works kind of?
Yeah.
Has anybody else, have you done any other city where you've done either a library or a museum or a park district facility?
No, nothing permanent.
So you've done installations.
Oh, yeah.
But this is the first kind of capital type thing or investment type thing.
And this is really sort of,
Did you think it was a phony phone call when we called over and said, we'd like you to do?
No, because I know Lee really well, and we've been doing a number of things with her. But I think it was really sort of also, that was the entry into the sort of World's Fair, the
Expo in 1893.
The sort of transportation to get there. And I love that whole idea that, this is an immersive installation. So it's not that once you come off the train, you're like in this experience. And so that was really important. Also, the way that I work in terms of my sort of connection with floral and pattern. How do you sort of welcome one coming to the station to go into the city as well as coming back home, and they have this sort of amazing sort of transition sort of space.
Some people think I've lost my mind in the sense of making, we have art in almost now 80 some odd stations.
Yeah, it's great.
I have never, that is a gold standard. I'm not sure we're ever going to replicate or be able, and it's good. So my daughter, before she goes back to school, wants to go see it. So, so I read in your background, you worked with Alvin Ailey. Mm-hmm. And you don't know my background. I had a scholarship to the Joffrey Ballet.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So how did, doesn't every mayor have a background with Joffrey Ballet?
Right.
So how do you think Alvin Ailey and dance as a form influences your work today? I mean, Alvin Ailey is one of the great dancers and companies in the United States worldwide. Yeah. So what did you learn there, and how did you think it influences your work today as an artist?
I think that it influences my work in sort of two major ways. And one is how I look at space. Mm-hmm. I look at space as I would look at the way in which one choreographies work. How does the audience enter the space? What is that encounter? What are they surrounded by? What is the rhythm of how things sort of fit and flow together? Mm-hmm. And so it all becomes part of this sort of vernacular kind of sort of experience. And the other part is performance. I do a lot of performance work, and particularly with the Soundsuits. I do a lot of work throughout the entire world where we will bring 50 performance suits, and then we will build the performance working with the community.
What was the background to the Soundsuit? I've read before it had to do with the Rodney King.
Yeah. It was really sort of my sort of response to the Rodney King verdict in 92. And, that was the first time that we first saw anything recorded. Mm-hmm. And just the impact of that alone was just overwhelming. And so it was really me sort of, trying to sort of put the pieces together. Mm-hmm. And I happened to be in the park one day, Grant Park, sitting, and I looked down on the ground and there was a twig, and that twig was the catalyst for the first sound. So I started to collect all the twigs in the park because that twig sort of represented, what does it feel like to feel discarded, less than dismissed? So I started to collect all the twigs, went home, built this sculpture, but didn't realize I could put it on. The moment that I put it on and started to move, it made sound. And so that's how Soundsuit came about. And then when I made sound, then I started to think about the role of protest. In order to be heard, you got to speak louder. And so it just sort of kept sort of evolving.
You're the youngest of 7 boys?
No, I'm the second to the oldest.
Second to the oldest. 7 boys. I'm going to build a statue for your mother. I'm one of 3 boys, and I've said we've left our mother crazy.
I mean, and we were
if your mother can survive 7 boys, you should be. Are you nice to her?
I'm very nice to her. And we're all 1 year apart. I mean, like, really, like, how?
No, that's not.
What was she thinking? But I realized that
what about your dad? Yeah, what was he thinking?
He was the only child. And my mother
He was an only child?
Yeah. And my mother came from a family of 16. She was the first. So my mother had been raising her brothers and sisters anyway. So, it was like she had it fully under control.
No, we booked the wrong cave to talk to. We should have booked Mama Cave and had a conversation with her.
Oh, my God.
And now you close to all your brothers?
Yeah. One also lives here.
In Chicago?
Jack.
And which one is Jack?
Jack is the oldest.
And what does Jack do, if I may ask?
He's also an artist. He also teaches at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago.
So both of you there?
Yeah.
What kind of materials does Jack work with?
He works primarily in the design sort of program. And so he makes amazing sort of accessories, amazing leather bags.
How did both of you get into the arts?
I think it was...
Is there anything in the family background or your parents exposed you?
It is there, through quilt making. My grandparents were sort of wood makers and, construction and things of that sort. So I think that was sort of our vision of what we saw. But I think it's, our parents just sort of giving us the independence to sort of find ourselves and explore, and not sort of, shun that idea that we want to go to art school.
Where'd you grow up?
Missouri.
And how'd you make it to, I know you go to Michigan, how'd you make it to Chicago?
I grew up in Missouri, went to the Kansas City Art Institute for my undergrad, then went to Cranbrook for my master's, and then at my closing sort of meeting with my professor, he goes, "Oh, by the way, you have a job in Chicago at the School of the Art Institute." And so that's why I'm here.
You got your bus ticket and you got right here?
I was like, okay. I was like, all right.
How do you find making art in Chicago? Do you think Chicago's welcoming to artists? What would it do?
Yeah, I mean, Chicago's been, great for me. I think it's a great art sort of center. I think there's a lot of amazing young artists here. I think it's a great environment Chicago's very forgiving. In terms of, you can do a performance, do an installation, an exhibition, it could fail and they, will give you another chance. It's not like New York.
No, 100% agree. New York, you failed, you might as well just leave. Forget about it. Don't even, don't come up for another, a leap year.
And so I think that's the sort of amazing thing about Chicago is that, we collaborate. And we do a lot of work here in Chicago with a lot of dancers, a lot of, with Michelle Boone, Jeannie Gang. So we're really invested in being here and really looking at, how do you look at it as a form of service at the same time?
Now that you've done one CTA station, would you want to work on another project with the city?
Yeah, why not?
No, I mean, was it a good experience?
It was a great experience.
Okay.
Really, really good. We go into these projects, we understand when we're working within the corporate sort of sector and when things aren't ready and what's ready. And it's just part of how it works. I think the most important thing is that, my vision can be realized. And I think that's why it was a great experience. I'm at that point where, if I have an idea and, if you're on board, can we really sort of make it come to fruition?
At dinner last night, Amy, Alana, and I were sitting down. I was saying, the one thing with the tile and the pictures, I said, the only thing I was thinking of is I was waiting for the sound of birds and nature in the background to be. I mean, it's really, you don't think you're in a train station.
No. Well, and I think, too, with the lenticulars, as you sort of move from one side to there's a sense, there's a rhythm that happens. There's movement built within the design, and so that really sort of shifts your experience. And I think just being able to look up at the ceiling and you're just sort of mesmerized with pattern and imagery that also sort of inspires. And
So tell everybody about the place in Old Irving neighborhood. Why'd you pick that neighborhood, and what's the vision for that space?
36 North Milwaukee, Old Irving Park.
It's not far from my old congressional office.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was in Irving and Elston.
Okay.
Yeah, not far at all.
I've been looking for a building for probably 6 years. And every place that we looked, it really came down to zoning. We couldn't get the zoning changed in a number of places. Why didn't we come to you, huh?
I don't know. It's like, it would. Mayors have an ability to solve these things like that. It would, yeah.
But and so
were there other neighborhoods you looked at?
Oh yeah, well, we were on the south side and we were just going to stay there. But then, also the cost of things were going up. And then we found this amazing building. We were looking for a space where the studios could all be on one floor. You start out on one floor solo, then you all of a sudden, your gallery's like, you need to hire 5 assistants, and then you're like, okay, I'll take another room, and then before you know it, you've got 12, and you're like 3 rooms.
It's like a small business.
And we just sort of were like from one floor to the other, and it was just crazy. And so we wanted all facilities on one floor, so it's just easy to move into the shipping and receiving room, photograph, and then ship out to New York. And it was just really about the flow, and then also looking for, the right kind of live-work situation. And so facility is what the new building is called, and it's really going to be this sort of special project space that will facilitate projects working with the public school, working with local artists.
So people will come in there and be able to work.
They will be able to work. They will be able to come there and experiences, performances or installations. And, we want to start a scholarship program for,
young
high
artists.
school. Yeah.
When you're teaching at Art Institute, somebody says, I want to be an artist. What's your go-to kind of remarks about what they should be ready for?
Well, that's the first question I ask them. What do you want? What do you want to be? And if they say an artist or a designer, and I say, well, we're going to work toward that. At the end of the day, it's really about sort of, it's a 2-year program that I'm sort of under. And it's really about how do I get these young people to know how to trust themselves. And the only way to get there and for them to sort of come to that understanding is failure.
It's the hardest part.
That's the only way they're going to understand and find out who they are. It's through sort of exploration, mistakes.
I give, when I do commencement dresses, I always say the most important thing that will happen in your life is when you fail, figuring out how to pick yourself up.
Get out.
And I say, if you can figure that out, you'll figure everything else out in life.
Yeah.
What do you think was your defining failure that kind of gave you your trajectory?
Oh my God. It was here in Chicago. I was doing a sort of massive performance project at the Cultural Center. And I had 15 volunteers that were helping me on the project. And only 5 showed up for the day of the performance. And it was a disaster. Literally, I didn't think that I could recover. It was that extreme.
Why was it that?
Because I was just trying to multitask, and I couldn't focus on what I was there to do because I had to go run over and pull the curtains open, or, it was, and then get back on stage. It was just a disaster. And so,
Did we ever contact the other 10 that never showed up?
Never.
What year was that?
Oh God, that was probably 80s.
And how long did it take before you did another show/performance?
Probably 2 years later.
So it took a while.
Yeah, because I understood, number one, I had to pay everyone. That's what I knew. But, back in the day, we just sort of would all help out. And, I'll help you with your gig. And so it was just that sort of thing. And so, but it was okay.
Was the Cultural Affairs Department helpful in the sense of you as a young artist?
Oh, yeah.
giving you a place to work, a place to show your stuff?
I think I had my first big major show there in the Yates Gallery. And that's when, in my gallery in New York, was interested in my work. They flew here to see the exhibition, and that's when I signed on with Jack Shaman Gallery in New York, and they sold that entire show out.
Is that your gallery? So when you go around the world and you look and you say, I want to bring this home to Chicago. I got to have this in the city, or this idea. Is there something that we would do as a city that would be help the artist cultural community here, or type of relationship, or something you've seen? I mean, I will, like that piece that you've done in the L station, that literally came from reading a story in the New York Times about a station in Berlin, and I said to Dorval, we should do one of those stations. We should do something like this. That's how that started. So is there something you've seen and have been exposed to and say,
oh my God,
this is how we learn, and then we say it's our idea, it was an original idea. We never give the other city a credit.
Right. There's this sort of exhibition sort of project called Lille, Lille 3000.
Lille 3000.
In Lille, France. And I was part of that project where there is this curator there that sort of curates all of these sort of spaces. They could be vacant, they could be part of a museum, but it's basically all of these sort of installations, exhibitions that are throughout the entire city. But the entire city is completely invested in this weekend. I mean, it's the press, the coverage, and the windows, just
everything. So the whole city becomes like a gallery.
Oh my God, it was fabulous. And then they put on this amazing parade that kicks off. And so they asked me to do this amazing inflatable sound suit that led the parade that year, based on a postcard that Bob created. And DDA looked at the postcard and said, I want this to lead the parade. And we were like, well, it's not real. He goes, we'll make it. But this festival has been going on for probably a decade.
So
it's amazing.
6 years ago, around that time, there's a Frenchman, and he was sitting in this room, and they had these giant, I'm talking 4-story puppets, and it would be like a parade, and it would tell a story. And I think Liverpool, he's French, but Liverpool they do an annual thing, and we were going to try to make Chicago the only city they also did it, and he was going to tell the story of the 1893 World Expo.
Wow.
And come from all different parts of the city with these, I don't know how else to describe them, 3 to 4 story puppets that would be moved towards the city and tell the different parts of how the city came together for the World Expo. And this sounds eerily similar to it. So I'd be very interested in looking it up.
But it was just incredible just how the city all came out and was part of this shared sort of moment.
When you reflect in your career and you look at Chicago, you have yourself, you have Theaster Gates, you have Hebrew. Why do you think Chicago is such an epicenter in the visual arts?
Kerry James and Marshall.
Kerry did an incredible mural on the side of the
Cultural Center is fabulous.
Yeah, we have 4 African-American men, all not nationally, internationally known, all doing tremendous artwork, all also teaching. Why Chicago, you think? Have you ever thought about it?
For me, it's, I needed to be, yes, I could have moved to New York, of course. But today
you never gotten a zoning change in New York. Okay, you'd never be in the mayor's office doing a podcast with the mayor.
Or being able to find this amount of space in New York. Let's just start there. I think it's really, for me, just needing to sort of separate myself from the world and to be able to be in a space where I can just focus on the next sort of vision and to develop that. And for me, Chicago allows me to sort of be quiet. It allows me to get into this sort of...
Contemplate, you mean?
to sort of work through. I'm very quiet, and then I just sort of hit the center of the target, and I drop off the deed, and then I step back out, and it has to take care of itself. And so just that development and
that must be being number 2 of 7 boys, that kind of thing. Quiet, and then all of a sudden throw the hand grenade in the middle of the room and walk out.
I was really Is
that your role
no,
among the brothers?
Absolutely not.
No? Who
No.
has that role?
Probably the fourth one, Tim.
The middle one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a middle child of 3 boys, and I always we wrote a book, War or Peace. We could do either one.
But, we were also sort of
Are you guys all
raised.
close?
Yeah, we were very much raised. Boys, you're always fighting each other. And,
Yeah,
but we were always taught to sort of hug and make up. So that was
we were always
lovely.
fighting each other, and the rules were, and we could fight each other. Nobody from the outside could touch one of us. Then we.
Oh, well, of
yeah.
course.
Yeah.
Wasn't that nice?
How did you and Bob meet?
Me and Bob met. Bob came to my house maybe 25 years ago to a clothing sale from a friend, actually Greg Cameron.
Does that count as really? From
Yeah,
Greg?
Greg.
From Joffrey Ballet?
Jeffrey
Greg?
Ballet Greg. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
This is a small world.
Yeah.
I just like the record show. I never got the invite for the clothing sale. That's okay by me. So you came to the
Oh my
Bob
God, we
came?
are just losing points right now. What and so Bob came to the sale, and I said, "What do you do?" Mm-hmm. He goes, "I'm a graphic designer," and I was like, "Oh, I'm doing my first publication with the Cultural Center. Are you interested in doing my book?" And then, interesting enough, Bob was living on Wabash. Mm-hmm. And I was on Michigan. We were like a block from each other.
And didn't.
For years.
Never even saw each other.
Never.
Not like in the nearest coffee shop or something like that.
Never. From that day till today, Bob does all of the publications. Mm-hmm. Anything that's printed or produced paper-wise, he produces all of it. Amazing designer, amazing eye. And so we've been best friends for a long time.
What's your favorite material to work with?
Oh, God.
Besides twigs, we got that part.
I've worked with everything. Mm-hmm. It's not that it's ever sort of what is the best material. It's really sort of, I tend to sort of like, finding the means necessary to support the idea. So it could be clay, it could be painting. So it's really not a material. It's really sort of what allows the message to be clear.
Given that we are so known for theater, are there any companies any of the theater companies you would love to just come and say, I want to work with you on a stage set or something like that? When you think about Shakespeare, theater or Looking Glass or opera, the lyric opera?
I would love to do an opera. Can you imagine? Like me, creating the stage set. Why not?
No, I'm all for it.
I'm all open.
I'm not on the committee. I'm not on the curating committee, but I'm all for it.
We're putting it out in the world right now. It's going to happen.
I think actually it would be good for the lyric opera in the sense of opening itself up to a larger audience.
Yeah. I would love to sort of work with the lyric opera and with the Soundsuits. And, how do you sort of bring these two ideas in this sort of mash of two differences? And
when you look back at working with Alvin Ailey, did you ever wish that you'd done one dance of his that you didn't do, or some piece of his?
I was sort of studying with them during my sort of time in undergrad at the Kansas City Art Institute.
I see.
The University of Kansas had a branch, and that's how I was sort of involved in dance. But I was never looking at dance as a pathway. It was more looking at dance as another sort of medium to consider, to sort of incorporate within my practice.
I think it's, obviously I have a background, but I think it's one of the great art forms.
Oh, yeah.
And it's math, it's interpretation, and it's a whole new way of thinking. There's that section in the Bible where God says, I have piped music unto thee, and thee have not danced. It is the ultimate human expression.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's it for my Sarah Lawrence education. That's all I'm going to do for my liberals. There's a quick round on Chicago.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Thick or thin pizza?
Thin.
Okay, that's one. Okay. Cubs or Sox?
Sox.
Lake or river?
Lake.
Sears or Hancock?
Sears.
12-inch or 16-inch softball?
12.
Okay. Looks like you got your studio in New York. All right, ladies and
Bob,
gentlemen.
we're doomed.
We're
No.
here with Nick Cave, a Chicago artist all the way from Kansas City. He's made Chicago home. I really want to congratulate you on the new station.
Oh, great.
I said to my family last night, I said, it's something you'll not experience anywhere else. And they'll never, I hope no other aldermen look at it because they're going to say, I don't want that station anymore. I want that one over there. It's really, and it's going to be such a gateway.
Oh, yeah.
I've already contacted the Obama Foundation of making sure that when the president and first lady are back, that they go see it. Because I really do think it's going to be...
I need to open up a performance for their...
Well, you need to get yourself an agent. That's
building.
maybe
Can you-
in my...
can you- what?
I'll be free
How-
after
do
3
you-
months from now.
Okay.
I'll take that. Bob and I will both take 10%. There it is.
That's okay. Shall we shake on this right now?
Yeah,
No, but
exactly.
no.
I'll introduce you. But I swear, I think I told him when he was talking about the library, I said I'm gonna build a new station. That was actually a federal grant, a Tiger grant, and I said it's a Department of Transportation grant. But I said we're gonna build a new station that will, as people come in, they'll come there, and we're gonna do a bus service. I said it will just totally be stage one of their immersion into your library. And it's achieved everything and more than I've ever thought. And we're redoing the whole streetscape from there all the way to the library, from your L station. That will now go, we're changing the name of the Garfield L station to the Nick Cave L station. Would you like that too?
I think... Look, get the snap it. No.
Nick Cave, thank you.
It was great, thank you.
You've been listening to Chicago Stories with Mayor Emanuel. You can subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts and tweet your guest ideas using hashtag ShyStories. Thanks for listening.